morning, everybody. It's always a bit of a responsibility to speak at this time of the morning, because if you put your audience to sleep, then they've been machshel them in the, excuse me, the issue of sleeping outside of the sukkah. So please, if you feel the temptation to fall asleep, please get up. I won't be insulted in any way, and go and sleep in the sukkah outside. I want to speak about David HaMelech. David HaMelech, the Hoshana Rabbah, is the Ushpizin of David HaMelech, and specifically two psukim about David HaMelech. David HaMelech said, Ani tolas v'lo ish, I'm a woman, not a man, v'ani tefillah, and I am prayer. So those two psukim, I want to show how they, it's Hashem, fit together. And really they are the inyonim. The first inyan is the inyan of anova, of humility, and the second inyan is the inyan of chukka, of aspiration, of desire for lofty things. Okay, now comes the moment of honesty. I want you to put up your hand if your Sukkot has been one of unmitigated simcha. Okay, so I see I'm in good company. The Vilna Gaon says that, excuse me, v'samachta b'chagecha is the most difficult mitzvah in the Torah. True, I think what he meant was that a person should have a continuous, unending, unbroken simcha, which is very, very difficult. But I want to try and go into a little bit why it is that the mitzvah of simcha is so difficult, and maybe offer a practical approach to improving our simcha. We're never going to be the Vilna Gaon, but of course each of us on our level, from year to year, hopes that he can improve a little bit. Lahavdil, in the secular world, there's an extensive literature on what they call the blues, depression, which strikes precisely around the time of the secular holidays. Of course, those times for non-Jews are supposed to be the happiest of the year. I think, from what I understand, some people get brought down by the suspicion that everybody's having a much better time than they are. And also, it's a time where families get together, and people who don't have a family or a functioning family feel that lack much more greatly. And therefore, even in secular terms, a time of quote-unquote simcha has always got that other side which may tip a person into depression. Simcha was not so elusive for our great-grandfathers. The Ananei HaKavod, which departed with the sin of the Egel Azav, returned with the clouds on the 15th of Tishrei, the beginning of Sukkot. In point of fact, the Vilna Gaon says, there's a famous kasha, that if the Ananei HaKavod were these booths on one level, two pshatim in the Gemara, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu housed us in when we came out from Mitzrayim, if that's the case, then why aren't we going out into booths immediately after Pesach? In other words, we should have 2 weeks of Pesach followed by 2 weeks of Sukkot to celebrate the booths, the Sukkah. So Mishnah Brewer brings down the famous Torah, which says that the reason why we don't go out into those booths after Pesach is because at that time of the year, the whole world is going out into booths. It's the summer. People typically go out. And therefore, it would not be nikah. It wouldn't be recognizable that we're going out into these booths as a mitzvah. And therefore, when the whole world comes in from their booths, we go out into ours. The Vilna Gaon says that the reason that the celebration of the Ananei Kavod, or the booths that we go out into, is really not those Ananei Kavod. The Ananei Kavod, they departed with the Chet HaEgel. We go out into the Sukkah, Davka on the 15th of Tishrei, because that's when the Ananei Kavod returned to Klal Yisrael. But surely our great-grandfathers, our forefathers felt this tremendous simcha when they felt close again to Hashem, when Hashem said, I've forgiven you. And he brought back that palpable indication of his closeness by the Anonei HaKavod. But I think probably the reason why we, and of course they felt tremendously connected to Hashem, we in our generation, we have a problem feeling connected to Hashem. Many people come to me and they say this, I don't feel connected. And I think the basic reason is, and I want to elaborate on this, is that we're not living in Hashem's world. We're living in our own world. And that's a lonely world. What do I mean by we're living in our own world? I used to go to the States quite a lot, and I remember when I was going on internal flights, I don't know if they still have these things, but you could reach into the seat pocket in front of you and pull out this thing, this amazing magazine called the In-Flight Buying Guide. Unbelievable. I've never seen a magazine so full of things that I didn't need. I'll give you an example. A pair of sterling silver monogrammed cufflinks for your pajamas. A pair of GPS swimming goggles for swimming the English Channel. A reamer for your ketchup bottle. Now this is a very interesting piece of equipment, whereby it's got a sort of twirly thing at one end and a sponge at the other. And it allows you to insert the reamer, it's called, into your ketchup bottle. I see you've got one of these at home, right? And you twirl it around, and you can pull it out, and you can squeeze the sponge and extract the last microgram of tomato ketchup from your... Okay, I'm exaggerating, but not by much. We live in a world where we have solutions to problems that we didn't even know we had the problems. Of course, nobody has problems anymore. They just have issues. And I thought to myself, I look at this little magazine, and I thought, everything in Hashem's world can teach us something. What is this magazine teaching me? And I thought to myself, it's teaching me that I'm in need. You poor thing, you didn't even realize this. You need this, and you need this, and you need this. The instruction of this magazine, and of all advertising, really, if you think about it, is to turn a person into a needer, a taker. To frame my gisha, my approach to the world, in terms of what I need. Now, Rav Eliyahu Dessler, in his very famous essay, Mama, Kuntres HaChesed, a essay on kindness, explains that there are two motivating principles in the human psychology, in the human psyche. The two root motivations in a person are the desire to give, which is the elevated, the godlike part of a personality. Desire to give, B'Tselem Elokim, that's what it means when a person's B'Tselem Elokim. It means just like Hashem is a giver. So you too should be a giver. Now, of course, ultimately, we can't be like Hashem because Hashem gets nothing from his giving. But on whatever level we can be, the more we frame ourselves, the more we become givers, the more we see life as a series of opportunities to give, the more godlike we will become. And the more we will have fulfilled the purpose of the creation. And the more we frame ourselves as takers, that's the Yetzer Hara. Roots of all war, hatred, immorality, everything bad in this world comes from desire to take. And it's interesting, Rav Dessler says that those are the two root motivations. That's all. And he says, interestingly enough, if you analyze, it's a very interesting thing to do this, at any single point in your day, you analyze, why am I doing this? You'll see that you'll be being driven by one or the other. There's no halfway house. I'm either taking or I'm giving. I'm taking or I'm giving. Being connected to Hashem means trying to be B'Tselem Elokim, as much like Hashem as I can be. And the first step to say that is to say that this is not my world. This is Hashem's world. Another, humility. A person who thinks of the things that he needs makes himself the center of the universe. We say every day, twice a day, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, not Ani Echad. Because it's very easy to go through your life and believe there's a God. Fine. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, there's a God. But ani echad. I am the what's called mechayev metzias. The fact that I exist proves that I have to exist. That was what Paro understood. Li haya'or v'ani asisini. It says in the Novi. The river is mine, and I made myself. Paro was the original self-made man. The fact that I exist proves that I have to exist. No, nothing has to exist except Hashem. It's very easy to go through your life and believe that you really are the center of existence. And everybody in the world is some kind of super-duper IMAX presentation for my benefit. Because, hey, I know I'm here. I know I'm here. And that's the beginning, that's the end of atheism, basically. There may be a God, quote unquote, with a small g in the world, and I'll let him get on with his thing. But ani echad. The Aruch LaNer has something at the end of Maseches Sukkah called Siyum. And he says that the Machlokas at the beginning of Maseches Sukkah, the Mishnah at the beginning of Maseches Sukkah, brings a Machlokas between the Chomim and Rabbi Yehuda, whether a sukkah above 20 amos is kosher or posel. And we paskin like the Chomim that above 20 amos is posel. What's 20 amos in real terms? Meters, feet. I guess it must be about more than this. 30, 40 feet, something like that. An amma is between 12 and 18 inches. Who's good at math? The 20 amos is half a meter, so 10 meters. About 2 meters higher than the space medrash. Can I know? So, there's a three-way machlokes Amoraim as to why we paskin that a sukkah above 20 meters is possible. Rabbah, Rabbi Zera, and Rabbah. Rabbah says the reason why a sukkah above 20 meters is possible is because that the ayin is not sholet. The schach at the top of the sukkah, one's peripheral vision does not recognize, does not clock it, doesn't take it in. Of course, if you turn your head up, you can see very, very high indeed. But when a person is standing normally, he has what's called peripheral vision, right? Which means that I'm looking this way. I can understand there's something up to a height of 20 amos. And that's the first one. That's Rabbah. Person's peripheral vision, he doesn't recognize, he doesn't feel he's dwelling in the sukkah. Rabbi Zera says the reason why a sukkah above 20 meters high is possible is because he's not dwelling in the shade and the tzel of the schach. He's dwelling in the tzel, in the shade of the fanot, of the walls. And Rava, says the reason why a sukkah above 20 meters high is possible is because usually when a person builds a structure of that height, he builds it as a binyan kva, a fixed dwelling, a permanent dwelling. And the sukkah has to be a binyan arai, a temporary dwelling. The Aruch LaNer says that these three Amoraim are underneath the surface of things, discussing what is the ikka, the main midah, the main character trait of a tzaddik goma. And they are, Rabbah says, the ikka midah of a tzaddik goma is Yireh Shamayim. That's Rabbah. Rabbi Zera says the ikka midah is Bitarchan, trust. And the third pshat, the third understanding, which is Rabbah, is another. How do the explanation of why a sukkah above 20 amos is possible fit into these three ideas of, again, Yireh Shamayim, Bitarchan, Yireh Shamayim, fear of heaven, fear of Hashem. Second one we said is Rabbi Zera, which is Bitarchan, trust. The third one, which is another. Let's go through this. Rabbah says the reason why a person who dwells in a sukkah of 20 amos is not doing the sukkah is possible, is because, as well known, sukkah al shem schach. A sukkah is called a sukkah because why the schach? The schach is the roof. The schach, the word sukkah, is a combination, is the gematria of adnus, aleph daled nun yud, and yud kei vav kei. If you add those two numbers together, you get to 91, which is the same gematria as Sukkah. So Be'etzem, Hashem, so to speak, is hovering. That's the tzela de'emunusa, the shadow of faith. And the person who's not dwelling, who doesn't see the schach, Be'etzem, a person, what is Yerushalayim? Shavisi Hashem lenegdi somid. I have placed Hashem in front of me all of the time. Yerushalayim means I feel that I'm being watched. Lahavdil, Big Brother is watching me. I'm being watched. I know my actions are... Hashem is watching me. So therefore, when a person doesn't have Hashem, so to speak, the schach in his eyes, he's lacking in Yerushalayim. That's Rabbah. Rabbi Zera says the lacking of a sukkah, which is about 20 amos, is because a person is dwelling in the tzeil of the defonos. And he says the ikka, the main aspect of a tzaddik gomer, is bitarchan. And he says there are three kinds of bitarchan. Two are false and only one is correct. There's a false bitarchan, a false trust in Hashem, which says, I'm going to sit in my room, do absolutely nothing, and my Yeshua, Hashem is rescuing, going to rescue me, save me, and I don't have to do anything. He says that is a foolish bitarchan. A person is not allowed to behave like that. The other kind of bitarchan, which is inappropriate, which is false, is a more subtle idea, which is that I understand that I have to try, I have to make effort, I have to make hishtadlus. But Hashem's Yeshua, the fact that Hashem will save me, will get me out of this particular problem, will and has to come, so to speak, through my efforts, through my hishtadlus. That's called living in the tzeil of the defonos. If we think of the sukkah as a four-sided place, the world conceptually has four corners, four directions. So to speak, I mimid, I stand, I rest Hashem's Yeshua on my efforts, on my defonos. He says the correct kind of bitarchan, as we understand, is to do hishtadlus, to try, but to understand that my efforts have got nothing to do with how Hashem will save me. There's a famous idea that says, Yogati Mutsasi, I tried and I found. Talk about this in terms of learning, in terms of Yiras Hashem. Yogati Mutsasi, I tried and I found. If you think about it, that's a strange expression. What is a Yogati Mutsasi? You should say Yogati Ve'evanti. I tried and I understood. What's the idea of Metzia? Metzia means I found it. I stumbled across it. Have you ever had the experience of working very, very hard in Seder Rishon in the morning, in your eons, and then suddenly in the afternoon, in the middle of Bekiyos, this thing drops into your head. Oh, the light came on. Yogati, you worked hard in your morning Seder, and Hashem gave you a Metzia in the afternoon. The connection between the effort and the reward are only the fact that you made the effort. The fact that you tried, the fact that it doesn't limit Hashem to bringing whatever Yeshua, whatever you need through your efforts. Bitarchan. And the third aspect of the sukkah, above 20 amos, which is possible, which is Rabbah, which is where we paskin says, the orach laneh is the inyan of anava, of humility. There's a famous story, which of course you've probably heard, but it's worth repeating, of the Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim was being visited by a visitor from America, and he was shown into the Rosh Yeshiva's house, and he was shocked. He says, there was no furniture, there was nothing, two sticks of furniture, two chairs, a table, no sfarim, kimat, almost no books. And he said to the Chofetz Chaim, well, where's the Rosh Yeshiva's furniture? He says, well, where's your furniture? He says, well, Rosh Yeshiva, I'm just traveling through. Says the Chofetz Chaim, so am I. A person is just traveling through this world. A person who builds a sukkah above 20 amos is a solid building. I'm here. I exist. The ikka of a sukkah above 20 amos is gaiva. It's a very difficult thing to conquer because, as I said before, our perception of the world is as though we exist. palpability of our own existence is a difficult thing to surrender. And that's basically what we surrender twice a day when we say Hashem Echad. You are Echad. In point of fact, it's brought down in Sfarim that for a split second when a person says Echad, he should understand Ein Od Milvado. Nothing else exists apart from you, Hashem. That's called Mesiras Nefesh. I give over the deepest sense of my own existence to the fact that Hashem exists, and I am just one expression of in His world. Very difficult to do this, because the palpability, the feeling of our own existence is something very strong inside us, with the essence of another, of humility. It reminds me of a story they say about two actors sitting in some coffee shop on Sunset Strip in Hollywood. And one actor's talking to the other, and he's telling him about, the jobs that he got, and the jobs that he didn't get, and the jobs that his agent sent him up for, that she shouldn't have sent him up for, and the ones that she didn't send him up for, that he should have sent up, the ones that he was too short for, he was too tall for, he was too ugly for, he was too good looking for. He goes on talking about all this about himself for about half an hour, and then he gets to the end and he says to the other actor, he says, okay, that's enough about me. You talk about me for a while. When I was a kid, we used to have a thing called Mad Magazine. I still have Mad Magazine. You heard of it? Mad Magazine was great. I remember there was one thing in Mad Magazine that I really loved, was this thing called Scenes We'd Love to See. And I once had an idea of a scene that I would love to see is somebody receiving an Academy Award for the best actor in Los Angeles, California. And I think it would go something like this. Mad Magazine's take on the Academy Awards. Ladies and gentlemen of the Academy, I can't tell you what a tremendous pleasure it is to be standing here in front of my peers and receiving this wonderful, wonderful award. Ladies and gentlemen, there are so many people connected with the project of this immensity. My producer, my director, wonderful, wonderful, behind the camera, made all this a reality. So many people, ladies and gentlemen, here tonight that I have to say thank you to. But ladies and gentlemen, there's someone here tonight above that I have to say thank you to above everybody else. Someone, ladies and gentlemen, without this, none of this could have been possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank me. I can't tell you what a pleasure it was to work with me. How I felt that me was there for me in every scene that me and me did together. Ladies and gentlemen, there'll never be another me. Thank you so much and good night. Me. It's a joke, but very difficult to escape. If I think this is my world, it's a lonely world. It's a sad world. If I go through my Chol HaMoed thinking about my lulav, my esrog, my sukkah, my Suda, what was wrong, what my wife didn't do, what my children didn't do, what my chaver didn't do. It's a sad sukkah. If a person goes through his life proactively all the time, that is the essence of simcha. Because there are always opportunities to give. It's like, the difference between giving a gift and receiving a gift. You can never give the wrong gift. You can receive the wrong gift. You get your birthday present that you ask your parents for, and they're going to buy you, pretty stupidly, an iPhone. And, you open up the iPhone, and it's the iPhone, what is it now, 7, and you really wanted the iPhone 8.5. And you go, oh, thank you. That's just what I wanted. But it wasn't what you wanted. But when you give a present, you can never give the wrong present, because when you give something, you are giving yourself. The box, the iPhone, is just the wrapping. If a person goes proactively through his life and looks at every single moment of his life as an opportunity to give in some way or another, I promise you, you will live not just the sukkahs of simcha, but a life of simcha. It's impossible not to be happy when you give. Receiving depends very much on the gift. And, we've all experienced this feeling, right? You have some kind of mishigas in your head. I don't know, let's say, who's a musician here? What are your hobbies? Give me a hobby. What's your hobby? Walking? Okay, so let's take walking, right? So now you just read a newspaper article about these new Nike shoes, right? Which like make it feel like right? So you got, and you've seen the adverts, right? The Nike X double plus, right? X double plus. I've got to get those Nike X double plus. Baruch Atah Nike X double plus takes over your mind. We've all had this mishigas. And then you get the Nike X double plus, and that's great. And the next day it's nice. And about 2 weeks later, the double pluses have fallen off. And then it's just like any other shoe in your wardrobe. The desire to take, coming back to Rav Dessler, is always about the thing itself. And it's an interesting thing Rav Dessler says, because the desire to take is not about the object itself. It's about taking what I don't have and making it, moving it inside the perimeter of my possessions. And of course, the pleasure is to take it from outside, from out there, and get it. And of course, once I've got it, I've got it. And it just becomes one of a myriad of trophies of other mishigasim that I wanted, gathering dust on my shelves somewhere else. It's a lonely world. It's the world of taking. Another, humility, giving. There's a story I'd like to share with you about a family. Unfortunately, there was a lady here, Rabbi, just over the road here, just up here, quite literally, who were unbelievable in their hachnosas orchim, in their bringing in guests, inviting guests for Shabbos, davka for Shabbos. On any Shabbos morning, you could find up to 100 people in this small Ma'alat Dafla flat, and it was everybody there, like the weird and the wonderful. Somebody once turned up with a donkey. Nobody was turned away. Everybody was brought in. Everybody was made to feel choshev, important, significant. One day there was a guest, a student from the Hebrew University, who had, as I believe the fashion is now, a nose ring. Okay? So this little boy of 9 years old kept looking at this. He'd never seen this before. So this student was an extremely difficult guest. Every Devar Torah, every Torah idea that the host would try and present, this student would go, fundamentalism, sexism, racism, every ism under the sun. He really gave the host a hard time. So everybody was filing out at the end of the meal, and the host was standing there next to this 9-year-old, I think he was, son. And the student comes by, and this little boy of 9 years old looks up at this student and says, "Why have you got that silly thing in your nose?" So the student looks down and says, "And why have you got that silly thing in your head?" So this little boy of 9 years old, without batting an eyelid, said, "Because I have to know at all times and in all places that there's something bigger and more important above me. Now, why are you wearing that silly thing in your nose?" The student came home from this meal, and he wrote in his diary, he said, "This little boy of 9 years old knows exactly why he's wearing this kippah on his head. I have absolutely no idea why I'm wearing this thing in my nose." And I think he became somewhat more religious, I think the story goes. I don't think actually, whatever, it had an effect on him. A person has to know there's something bigger and more important above him, and he's not the center of the world. Reb Mendel Weinbach, Zeichet Tzaddik Livrocha, Rosh Yeshiva in Ohr Somayach, once told me, back in the early days of the state, where the leading lights of the political world were all descended from religious Jews who spoke Yiddish back there in the shtetl. So one of these very, super left-wing, very atheistic Zionist leaders with his jacket on and the shirt, outside in that style in the 50s, was walking through Mea Shearim. And this little Yingala, this little boy from Mea Shearim, runs up to this big, guy who's walking around Mea Shearim there with his entourage. And this little boy says to him, "Wo ist dein Kappelech? Where's your couple? Where's your?" So he says back to him in Yiddish, he said, "The whole sky is my couple, my house." So this little boy looks up and says, "Such a big couple for such a small head." Shav. The reason why we don't feel the simcha that we really feel, we should feel, is because we're trapped in our own worlds. We have to get out of our own worlds and get into Hashem's world, the sukkah. The tzeilah de hemnusa. There's an interesting measurement in the Gemara in Sukkah. It's called a Tephach sochek, or a Tephach Somayach. What is a Tephach sochek? It's a Tephach, a hand's breadth, but a little bit more. Tephach Somayach, a happy Tephach. Why did Chazal give it that seemingly strange name? Why not call it, I don't know, I suppose in modern Hebrew it would be something like a Tephach Mexi, a large Tephach, Tephach Gadol. Why Tephach Somayach? The Tephach is still a Tephach, but it's a little bit more. Simcha is the thing that makes a person understand that he is bigger than he thought he was. To expand the boundaries of his vision. In the secular world, the idea of simcha, quote unquote, happiness, is to get out of yourself. Let's get out of it. In Yiddishkeit, we say, let's get into it. Let's expand our borders. What brings a person real simcha? When he sees himself as more than he was. When a person gets married, it's not just me. It's me now, my wife. It's me and my children, my grandchildren. The more a person expands his view, the more he expands the view of who he is, the happier he is. That's true simcha. The tefach is still a tefach, but it expands. When a person leaves himself, the Gemara says, in Shema we say that we have to serve Hashem b'chol levavcha with the two bets. Why is it said b'chol levacha? Why levavcha? Two bets. It's with both of your yetzes, your yetzer tov and yetzer hara. The question is, how does a person serve Hashem with his yetzer hara? The yetzer hara is the ego. The word in Hebrew, a baby, a minor, is a katan. Katan. A baby is all yetzer hara. A baby is prepared, a young child is prepared to wake up an entire continent if he has a scratch in the back of his throat, a tickle. I don't care. You give a child, a young baby, a popsicle, Mashiach has arrived. You take it away from him, the world has come to an end. Why? Because katan is connected to the word in Hebrew, in Aramaic actually, katua. Katua, same word in English. Kat. Katua, katan. Because a katan sees every single moment of his existence as separate and unrelated from anything else. It's now this, now this, now this. In fact, if you think about it, television advertising and MTV has taught us to be katanim. Because that's what TV does. Now this, now this, now this, now this. Cut, 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 cut. What's a gadol? Gadol is from the pasuk where Yaakov Avinu benched, he blessed God. God gudud yigudenu. God is a marching troop. The whole concept of gadlut, of greatness, of being an adult, is hemshech, is continuance, is a troop. A troop goes forward, it's connected. Gadol means to take the separate moments of one's life and stitch them all together in a cogent, cohesive, single direction. Nothing goes to the side. Nothing is diversion. If you've met an Odom Gadol, one of the things that always impressed me about meeting great people is that nothing they do is going out this way. It's all plugging in. It's all focused, because they're gadol. They're they're a platoon which is marching forward. Most of us spend most of our lives as katanim. We never become real adults. Why? Because we get distracted. We do this, and we do this. Katua. So, I'll give you this. There's various means of. I just lost my train here. Yeah. So gadol and katan. Gadol is the idea of hemshech, of continuance, of going forward. Katan is to be fragmented. We are in a day called Hoshana Rabbah. Rabbah is the Aramaic for gadol. Rabbah means something great. The Rabbeinu Bachia, in his comment on Zos HaBrocha, notes there are various things which are called gadol, and one of those things is called Hoshana Rabbah. What is gadol about this day? So clearly this day contains within it this ability to be gadol, to connect. The Gemara says in Pesachim that the reason why anybody starts anything is for himself. Meikara ki ovid inish aliba denafshe ka'ovid. In the beginning, a person only does something for himself. The bigger a person becomes, as we said before, this idea of gadlus, of simcha, expansion. The bigger a person becomes, the bigger his definition of me is. In other words, when we said b'chol levavcha, that a person has to serve Hashem with both his yetzer tov and his yetzer hara, is he supposed to expand his conscious, his idea of what I am. And that's the thing that gives him simcha. I'm not just me. I'm me and my wife, I'm my family. Avraham Avinu understood his I, his ego, encompassed all of the world. B'chol levavacha means the yetzer tov has to teach the yetzer hara. Your ego, your little I, is not just you. B'chol levavacha. Expand your vision. Reach out. Become gadol. Be besimcha. The simcha of understanding that your boundaries, be a Tephach gadol, spread out. The next idea I want to share with you in the time that we have. So we spoke up till now about the first posuk of David HaMelech, I said in the beginning, which is Ani Anochi Tolas V'lo Ish. The idea of humility. Let's just put this into perspective. Maybe with the next section here we'll be able to understand this a bit better. The idea of the simcha of it, reaching out from myself, has to start off with the place inside myself which is very small. With my connection to Hashem. With my humility. Otherwise I can't reach out. Hoshana Rabbah is the Ushpizan of David HaMelech, who said, Ani tefillah. I am prayer. My essence is tefillah. There's a well-known Yalkut Shimoni, which I'm sure you must have heard at least once tonight, which says that there are the four species correspond to four kinds of Jews. The esrog is a Jew, just like the esrog has taste and smell. So that represents a Jew who has taste, has tam, his Torah. And he has a reach tov, a nice aroma. He has mitzvahs and maisim tovim. The tamah, the lulav, dates are tasty. They have Torah, but they have no aroma, no pleasing aroma. They have Torah, but they don't have maisim tovim and mitzvahs. And then there's the Jew who has the arova, sorry, not the arova, the hadas, which smells beautiful but has no fruit. That's a Jew with maisim tovim. A Jew with mitzvahs but no Torah. And there's a Rabbah who has nothing. No taste, no smell. Let me ask you a question. If you were going to single out one day out of Sukkot and hold it up as being, for one of the species, one of the Daled Minim, which one would you choose? I'd choose the Esrog. Why are we taking the least of all of the species? And that's the day. This is the day of the Arava. There was a minhag, what we're going to replicate today in the times of the Nevi'im, where they would take the Arava and they would go around the base, the Mizbeach 7 times. All Ani Tefillah, David HaMelech, all of the minim correspond to prayer. The 4 species represent 4 organs of the body. The lulav is the spine, the esrog is the heart, the hadas look like eyes, the myrtle leaves, and the willow, the arava, are the lips. They're all connected with prayer. The mouth is in, so to speak, the center, between the heart, the esrog, and the eyes, the hadassim. The heart, it says that when a person davens, his eyes should be down, his heart should be up, and his spine bends in tefillah. And that all focuses on what comes out, which is the lips. The focus of tefillah, all of the 4 species, the parts of the body, are connected with the action of prayer. Ani tefillah, says David HaMelech. I am prayer. The whole physical body, as represented, is prayer, is tefillah. This is the night of David HaMelech. This is the night, the Ushpizah of David HaMelech, when he comes to the sukkah. David HaMelech was born without life. Chazal explained that Adam HaRishon gave David 70 years from his life, and that's why Adam HaRishon only lived for 930 years. David's 70 years were not his. David had no life. David, so to speak, lived a life of Tchiyas HaMesim, the revival of the dead. He received a gift of extra life. David lived the theme of Hoshana Rabbah. Hoshana, Hoshana, save me Hashem. Hosha. That was his whole essence. He had no life. David HaMelech had 70 years, which weren't his. And on Hoshana Rabbah, we beseech, we cry out to Hashem. We understand that we're all living on borrowed time. Every single moment, kol neshima is borrowed time. David HaMelech understood this more than anybody else because Adam HaRishon gave him 70 years. A person goes through his life and he feels, Magili, I'm supposed to be here. I'm here, aren't I? The essence of Hoshana Rabbah, the essence of Tefillah is, like Liorova, I have nothing. I deserve nothing. Hoshana. I depend on Hashem every single second. The Arava, as we said, thirsts for water. The Arava is thirsty. It grows, the willow grows by a stream. Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu all of his otzaros, his storehouses of reward. And he explained to Moshe Rabbeinu for each of these vast storehouses of schar, of reward, who they would be for. And then Moshe saw this huge otzar, this huge storehouse, this treasury. And he asked Hashem who would receive it. And Hashem said, it's a free gift for those who have nothing. When a person feels he truly has nothing, he's zochet for this tremendous reward. When his whole mahus, his whole essence is, I need tefillah, I have nothing. Everything is borrowed. I'm living on borrowed time. I have nothing except Hoshana. I cry out to Hashem. Give me life, Hashem. Give me a life that I don't deserve. That is why it's called the Hoshana Rabbah. Because as Chazal teaches, that's the root of all prayer. Every prayer that we utter is based on this idea of, save me, Hashem. I have nothing. I think all of us who come to Ohr Somayach have a moment, or maybe more than one moment, I'll tell you a story. I remember I'd been in Ohr Somayach for about 2 years. And it was going very difficult for me. I didn't open the Gemara till I was 37. So, it's when you're 19, 20, and your mind is a lot more flexible. And it was very difficult. I mean, I had certain advantages because I wasn't tempted in any way by what was going on in the world. I'd been there, seen that, done it, worn the t-shirt, knitted the t-shirt. But your mind is not so flexible at that age. And I got very despondent. And I remember standing outside the base medrash, and Rav Mendel Weinbach, came up to me and said, how are you doing? I said, well, I'm not doing so good. I don't think I can do this. It's not for me. He said, Yaakov Osha, sprinters are for the record. Life is a marathon. If a person keeps going, if a person cries out to Hashem, Hashem, I want your Torah. I have nothing. Give me life. Hoshana, save me. My daughter told me a story about this, her friend's Moroccan grandmother, who couldn't read, couldn't read at all. She used to, her tefillah was she would stand by the door with her hand on the mezuzah, and she would say in Arabic, that was a native tongue, Hashem, take all these letters inside the mezuzah and put them into the words that you want to hear. When a person has a chukka, a desire, Hashem, like the Arava thirsts for water. The Arava understands I have nothing. I don't have Torah. I don't have Maisim Tovim. But Hashem has this huge storehouse for those of us who say, Hashem, Hoshana, save me. Please, Hashem, I have nothing. Today probably is one of the greatest days of the year for tefillah, if not the greatest. And the Hoshana, the great prayer, which is Hoshana, save me. Cry out to Hashem tomorrow morning. Cry out to Hashem. Hashem, save me. I want your Torah. Please make me, help me to be what you want me to be. I know I have nothing. And that is why Hoshana Rabbah is the day where we take that willow, because that seemingly, that min who has absolutely nothing, that's us. Look at our generation. Look at ourselves individually. What do we have? We have Torah. We have Maisim Tovim. We have Midas Tovas. We have mitzvahs. What we really have is tremendous desire. The tribe of Dan is the lowest of the tribes, and yet he's connected to Yehuda. They both have Yehuda Gur Aryeh, and Dan also has the name Gur Aryeh in his name, connected together. Dan was the lowest of the tribes. In fact, it was so low that in the Midbar, the Yaakov wanted to spit them out because they were so full of Avodah Zarah. And yet what makes Dan part of Klal Yisrael, what makes Dan so important, is the same thing as we say on Yom Kippur, that we daven to pray with the Avar Yanim, people who are habitual sinners. Now one understanding is that without to be Goy Echad, we have to have everybody of Klal Yisrael. And just like the Ketores wasn't the Ketores without the Chelbana, this foul-smelling incense, part of the incense. There's another understanding. When a person realizes, Anochi Talas, I'm a worm. I mean, this nowadays, in psychology, you can't say this kind of thing because everybody has to feel very good about themselves. I'm not sure that's right. But a person understands absolutely nothing. Hashem, you've given me life. Give me life. Give me the ability to be what you want me to be. Ani talas, anochi talas, va'ani tefillah. My essence is tefillah. My essence is tshuva. My essence is humility. I know I have nothing, but Hashem, you created me. You love me. I'm living in your world. Hashem should bless us, that we should find the depths of our neshamas tomorrow morning, to reach down and to cry from the very depths of ourselves, Ona Hashem, Shiona. A good gebencht Jahr.